What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the ABJ Podcast Tornado Tag. Myself, ABJ, alongside the co-host, BP Burke. This is going to be a fun one. We're coming up on the Thanksgiving season, and we decided who's someone we're really thankful for in the world of professional wrestling. And a lot of names can get thrown out here. Like, who do you really appreciate? Who do you think really has shaped wrestling as a whole? In what aspects has shaped wrestling? And I think when it comes to this man, you have dove into working the coveted position named by him, and we've done the commentary role, which are two huge aspects of him that a lot of people are mostly known for because we were probably not breathing at the time he was actually wrestling. But yeah. So welcome, everybody. This content may not be suitable for children, anyone under the age of 18, and this is definitely not safe for work. Today, we'll be deep diving into the life of one of the greatest professional wrestling, most iconic figures, Gorilla Monsoon. From a collegiate athlete to a towering heel, from broadcast legend to an on-screen president of the World Wrestling Federation, his journey spans decades of change, drama, and impact. Let's set the stage, BP.
All right, so let me set the stage real quick. I'm gonna say three things before we get started.
Yes.
First and foremost, this is gonna be a happening. Okay. This is gonna be a happening because right now the electricity is so thick you could cut it with a knife. Literally, you could literally cut it with a knife because tonight the irresistible force meets the immovable object.
And what if I get a little crazy or antsy or I get out of hand a little bit here?
I'll have you thrown out of here.
All right, cool. I will definitely keep my P's and Q's.
But I'll give you a warning first. After a few will you stops, I will have you thrown out of here.
Got you. My God. Let's just start real quick there before we get into his early life. I generally, there's a lot of things that I feel like I've done in professional wrestling in the aspect of production and everything like that. But honestly, to me, my highlight, my favorite is being on the balcony with you at the Sanctuary and channeling our best versions of Gorilla and Bobby / of Jesse, and us two kind of mixing the pot between all three of them and blending those styles, but then also channeling our Muppets, old men on the balcony being crazy. But yeah, when I feel like
Statler,
when I feel like when people describe like our commentary style, I definitely say it's that era. It's that Gorilla Jesse, Gorilla Bobby style that we do. And I think more so you than me is what's carrying it because you're good at what you do. And I think Gorilla is low-key one of the best commentators of all time. He kept it tight. He did exactly what needed to be done. And that's where a good color person can shine because they knew Gorilla would steer the ship back where they need to be.
Right, especially people who are very comfortable with Monsoon, which was primarily Jesse Ventura and Bobby Heenan, as you said, because, and I think this is the same thing that happened with you and I. I think it all started because it's hard to work with a commentary partner. It's hard to work with a partner anywhere in professional wrestling. Not that I've ever been in the ring and ever will be, but it's hard to do anything without mutual respect with everybody involved. Like they always say in professional wrestling, when two friends fight, when two friends work each other, it's a great match because yes, it is because they're not afraid to unapologetically go all out. And, if you catch somebody, that's fine. That's part of the business, but it's also because if you tend to be friends with somebody, there tends to be a mutual respect there. And there was a mutual respect between Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse Ventura. And oh my God, was there between Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan.
Oh yeah.
And that's absolutely a huge part of it.
And that was a thing too, like doing the style of commentary I do, where sometimes I throw a little realism, we'll say, especially a little inside baseball between the boys, I'll throw in there. And the fans don't know what I'm talking about, but the commentary team does. The boys know. And sometimes I go a little hard on my broadcast partners where I've been asked, do you legit don't like me? Because how I do my thing. And I never had to worry about that with you. I knew that no matter what I said or what I did, you knew it was all just part of the thing. Yeah.
It's all a show. Yep. Sorry, kayfabe. It's all a show. In fact, it's funny we bring it up because that was Gorilla Monsoon's license plate. Like literally his car, New Jersey license plate, kayfabe.
Oh, he's the coin.
He is the guy that had literally his real license plate said kayfabe.
There's a few people that have it now. Yeah.
It's become a novelty thing, but his actual license plate through the DMV had it.
I love that.
Today.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into the early life origins of Gorilla.
And before we do this,
yeah.
I want to really shout out, and a lot of this is stuff I knew already, and some of this stuff is going to be little tidbits I picked up, but a lot of this is, and the reason we're doing the show, I suggested we do this topic. I want to shout out a great book, Irresistible Force by Brian R. Solomon. Brian R. Solomon is a writer for Pro Wrestling Illustrated. Back in the day, in the late 90s, early 2000s, I believe, he wrote for WWE Magazine, WWF Magazine, back when that was still a thing. He wrote a book about the original Sheik, which I have since bought after reading the Monsoon book. So shout out to him. Shout out to his book. Check it out, Irresistible Force. I believe it's on. I got it on Kindle. I believe it's available on Amazon. I don't know how many like physical booksellers it's at, but it's, having read the entire thing, it's definitely worth a look.
Is it
big shout out to him?
Is he involved in the writing process, or is
he
it
wrote,
someone?
No, it's his book. Like, it's not an autobiography. I mean, spoiler: Gorilla Monsoon has been dead for 25 years now, almost, or over 25 years. No, it's a biography. He wrote it.
Okay, I prefer those than sometimes people's accounts of what they think the guy
now,
was.
What he did is he had an opportunity to speak with a lot of people who knew Gorilla Monsoon. He's a lifelong, he's been in the business for now like 30 some odd years almost.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, he did have a lot of access to, she has since passed, unfortunately, but he did do a lot of interviews with Maureen Morella, who was Gorilla Monsoon's widow, some of Gorilla Monsoon's children, his daughters, some of the people who grew up in his neighborhood who went on to do things in professional wrestling. He even got a chance to talk to, and I forget her married name, but I'm just going to use her birth name, her maiden name, Jessica Heenan, Bobby Heenan's daughter. He did his research, he put the work in, and it turned out in a phenomenal book where it is a great. I don't
want to bury the lead or anything, but I did looking into the book a little bit, because I definitely have it on my list as well. But I stumbled across a little bit of a clip or podcast thing where they talked about their exit of WWE and how it affected them. Oh, so fucking heartbreaking.
Yeah, and shout out to Brian Solomon as well. He's a podcaster on top of being a writer. He does the Shut Up and Wrestle podcast. Shut Up and Wrestle with Brian R. Solomon. It's on the Arcadian Vanguard podcast network, which is known for a podcast for a guy I know you're not crazy about. I'm somewhat of a fan. Carries a tennis racket around, wears a lot of polyester.
Respect the fuck out of Jim Cornette. He's a historian.
He's great. Yeah, he's
great. I don't. It's kind of like he's created a mob of wrestling fans who think they're more entitled than they should be because they listen to Jim Cornette.
Most wrestling fans, I've come to learn, feel are fairly entitled, unless they're just super cool casual.
But Jim Cornette fans think because they listen to Jim Cornette, they can regurgitate his shit with zero experience or zero. Like I just think my biggest problem with a lot of the older guys is like, just because it's not their time and their generation and things are a little differently, it sucks and it's not good because it's not the same it was. And that kind of upsets me. But as a wrestling historian, the guy's fucking a legend. He's the best.
And Shut Up and Wrestle is a great podcast. A lot of it is interviews, guests, like people who Brian Solomon has had throughout the worked with throughout the years, gotten to know throughout the years. But I thought it would have been improper to not spend a couple minutes just talking about him, since his book was kind of the catalyst to
absolutely go and give them
and I knew a lot of
the story and follow them on social media and listen to that podcast and go get the book.
Absolutely. Get the book out. I can't recommend the book strongly enough. It was a great read. So let's talk about the man behind that book, behind somebody who has done pretty much everything in professional wrestling. Like you said, one of the most important positions, a position I get to sit at once a month now, which is surreal. The Gorilla position is named after Gorilla Monsoon, but the man behind the presence and a guy who always was able to separate himself from his wrestling character is Bob Morella, Robert Morella, whatever you want to call him. And what a guy, what a story. He's born June 4th, 1937 in upstate New York, in Rochester, New York. And he's born to a family of Italian immigrants. His family, I forget the name of the village. Buy that book if you want to get the exact name. But he came from an Italian American family. His parents were immigrants. He was the first generation born in the United States. And
you see that? If you kick out all the immigrants, you don't get fucking Gorilla Monsoons. Simple as that.
So
that should be enough right there. Fucking let's calm down. All right.
So he winds up, and I'm forgetting the book, and I don't have it in front of me to go through it. But I believe one of his parents did die very young, and his the other parent remarried. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, his father may have died young, and then his mother remarried. It might be vice versa. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But that's important to note because you can't tell the story of Gorilla Monsoon without having the ideal in his head that family is not necessarily blood, because that becomes extremely important. One of the most important things in the life of Gorilla Monsoon is that ideal. And we'll get to why later. So Gorilla is a little sickly when he's younger, but kind of overcomes it and hits a bit of a growth spurt. Gorilla Monsoon was a big man. If you saw our graphic, he was a big man, could be a scary man when he wanted to be. And he winds up going to Jefferson High School of Rochester, New York, and he's a 3-letter man. At that point, he's over 300 pounds. He's well over 6 feet tall, well over 6'6". He's a giant of a man. So of course, ironically, they nicknamed him Tiny, Bob Tiny Morella. In fact, I believe we'll get to this. And he lettered in track and field, where I believe he was like hammer throw shot, but I don't think he was doing hurdles.
Yeah.
He wrestled and he played football.
Didn't they also call him Gino?
Gino was his nickname. Yeah, Gino. Not a lot of people called him Bob, especially in wrestling. Even if you want, like you were talking about, like kind of pulling back the curtain and everything. The biggest pull back the curtain moment with Gorilla Monsoon is that there were so many times that Jesse Ventura would say, "What do you think about that, Gino Monsoon? What do you think about that, Gino?"
Yeah, I was gonna say, Gino is always a big one.
Not a lot of people in professional wrestling, if any, called him Bob. He was Gino. Yeah. He was Gino, and that comes from wrestling a little bit later. It became a nickname, but his birth name is Robert James Morella, and if he wasn't Gino, it was Bob. So he goes to Ithaca College. It's funny, when I was in high school, I got so many pamphlets from Ithaca College, and I was like, oh, that would be a cool place to go. Like their pamphlets just look cool. It's upstate New York, beautiful greenery.
They make beer in Ithaca. I've had a couple Ithaca Brewing Company beers.
See, I brought that up to my one uncle, and he's like, oh, they make good shotguns there. I guess they make shotguns in Ithaca, New York.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's also where one of the most influential people in media now, Bob Iger, who has been the guy at the helm of Disney for the better part of the last 25 years or so, 30 years. He went to Ithaca. David Boreanaz, who played Angel on Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel. He was the male lead in Bones. He's on like some SEAL team show. He was there. His father was actually the most famous weatherman in Philadelphia, Dave Roberts. That was his father. Wow. But Gorilla Monsoon went there. Bob Morella went there in the 50s and was a track star, but a very, very, very accomplished wrestler. And a lot of it was just his natural strength and agility. And he wound up almost winning national championships. To this day, they have the Bob Tiny Morello Award that is given out to a wrestler at Ithaca College, or Ithaca University now, I believe it's called. So like to this day, there's still not a Gorilla Monsoon Award. It wasn't about what he did later. It's the Bob Tiny Morello Award.
Yeah.
So
finished second, right? Like he was a runner-up.
He was very close to a national championship in wrestling. He wound up traveling to Russia, where he got a little demoralized because and I was funny. I was reading about this. Earlier today, just scrolling through Reddit. What happened to him with amateur wrestling? Because a lot of it was just his natural ability, his natural size. He could overpower people. He was athletic. He had some agility too. But then there's people who are just savants. Like there's a reason, like they say when they would mess around backstage, Kurt Angle, even though he was a little bit smaller, got the better of Brock Lesnar. Because Kurt Angle, like Brock Lesnar was an NCAA champion. He was here. Kurt Angle's an Olympic gold medalist, and you didn't mess with Kurt Angle.
Yeah.
So they say when he was part of a team that went to Russia in the late 50s, early 60s. And the thing I was looking at earlier was talking about how sports has that there's levels to this.
I think everything, anything you do has levels. Like, and when you realize you're not in your category no more, you're like, oh, I need to either get good or get the fuck out.
Right. And that's the thing. Like that, like they always say, the worst player on the worst team in the NFL was a great player in college.
Yeah.
And a superstar in high school.
Yeah. Who's the guy that goes around? He's like, he's like a street ball player, and he's always challenging people. And he goes, I can beat a guy in the NBA. And then a dude showed up from the NBA who was like, didn't get any time on the court. He was like, oh, like, and he's like, I don't even think I scored a basket in the NBA, and I will come and dust you. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
there's levels to this. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always think of the episode of The Simpsons. It was an earlier episode where Homer is the mascot for the Springfield Isotopes, the minor league team.
Yeah.
And they love him. And he goes to the main thing, the capital city team, the major team. And he's just, they hate him. They want the capital city goofball, who's the his counterpart. But anyway, Gorilla Monsoon, or Bob Morella, he married young too. He married a woman named Inez, but somewhere between college and his eventual career, they wound up splitting up. Because he wound up getting into construction. He wound up building a lot of buildings around Rochester. But because he had that name value of this college star, a lot of wrestling promoters in Rochester were like, hey, would you come in? You're a local wrestling icon. You know, almost won a national championship, and you're a local boy here in Rochester, which is near Ithaca. Like, everybody knew who he was. So he did a few angles there as just Bob Morella, Bob Tiny Morella. And that was that for a little bit. And then he started getting noticed, and he started working for Rochester, Ithaca. All these things are way upstate New York.
Yeah.
And kind of caught the notice of Maple Leaf Wrestling, which is run by the Tunney family. Frank Tunney was the main guy there. His nephew, Jack Tunney, wound up being a huge deal in the WWF for a while. So he wound up going up there as and the Gino Morella thing wound up becoming like more of a character. Because he loved his Italian music. He would love to listen to like Frank Sinatra. He would sing opera. He loved his Italian music. So he would do a thing where he would sing an opera song before the match, and then he would wrestle. And so eventually that's where the Gino Morella thing comes in, because it just sounds more Italian. Gino sounds a little more Italian than Bob.
Yeah.
So he becomes Gino Morella as a character, and he winds up going to Stampede. He winds up going to the Hearts. Yeah. He wound up wrestling in Calgary, and the when he starts traveling,
he's probably their first bear that showed the fuck up.
Now he is a bear, but I don't know if if Bret Hart ever if he ever licked ice cream off of Bret Hart's feet like Terrible Ted the wrestling bear did.
Terrible Ted's glad he wasn't there when Gorilla Monsoon showed up.
So it's funny. The foreword to the book we've been talking about, the Irresistible Force book, was written by Bret Hart, and and it's around the time he starts traveling that Gorilla Monsoon, or Bob Morella's first marriage, does break up. Him and his wife Inez do decide to separate. So he's in Calgary. He gets in the infamous dungeon, and he was able to according to the book, not necessarily best Stu, but hold his own enough that it was almost a stalemate. Like, Stu was hurting him, but he wouldn't make him wail in pain and submit. And eventually they kind of just agreed to a stalemate,
which is insane. Stu was that much of a gangster. He's chucking around. He's putting down 300-pound Gorilla Monsoon.
Yeah, well, I'll show you a hold or two, Sonny. Yeah, I'll show you.
Talk about levels to it. Like, I don't think I've ever heard this. And now, obviously, there's always that folklore, right? Like, Stu Hart has that Bo Jackson style fucking history to him. Like, no one ever got the better. Like, Stu was Superman.
Reggie, you should have said something when we were younger.
Yeah.
But the more important thing is he earned the respect. He earned the respect of Stu Hart, which carried a lot of weight in those days. A lot of weight, because everybody respected Stu Hart. Everybody respected Frank Tunney. And the other thing that at this point Gino Morella had a reputation for was, this is a college graduate. This is a point where, even more than now, a lot of the people involved in professional wrestling were the freaky people. Let's just be honest. They were not the fine, upstanding members of society. And this is a guy that had very, very, very traditional values. He was not a big drinker, not a big carouser, wasn't out trying to find a new woman every night. He did his job. He always, even to the very end, loved to be one of the boys. He loved to chat in the locker room, tell stories, play cribbage, play pinochle. He loved to play cards. He loved to gamble. He loved to gamble.
That was his vice. That was his. I was just like,
So,
everyone has a fucking vice.
he had two. He loved to gamble and he loved to eat. So those were his vices. He loved to gamble and he loved to eat, especially lasagna. You know, all the Italian food. Loved it all. So from there, he winds up bouncing around a little bit, and he winds up at the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, which at this point, Vincent J. McMahon, the Vince McMahon we know, his father is helping run things, and
there's a couple more W's in there.
WWF, yeah, Capital Wrestling Corporation, and his right hand man is a guy who predated him in New York, Toots Mondt. He's a guy who his story is a hell of a story. Toots Mondt. Yep. I forget it. I think William might have been his real first name. He was another guy. Like, he was one of those guys like from the Farmer Burns school. I think he may have even trained with Farmer Burns. Just this corn-fed farm boy who could wrestle and just be like twist anybody he wanted to into knots. And that was like the respect. And he was part of the early power structure in New York wrestling, even predating the McMahons. Like Jess McMahon, who would be the Vince McMahon we know, his grandfather, Vincent J. McMahon's father, he dabbled in wrestling, but he was more of a boxing promoter. Yeah. In his day, the wrestling trade in New York was dominated by a group called the Gold Dust Trio, which that's where the name comes from. Yes. Yep. That's where he got his name. And it was Toots Mondt, Billy Sandow, who that's where you get Damian Sandow from, and Ed Strangler Lewis, who was the guy who was actually in the ring most of the night. He was their key star. But Strangler Lewis and Billy Sandow had kind of gotten out of it. And at this point, the power structure in the New York territory is Vincent J. McMahon and Toots Mondt. And you have some ancillaries, like they're running in Pittsburgh. They have a good relationship with the guy who runs Philly at the time, was named Ray Fabiani. They had some stuff in Boston. Vincent J. McMahon was running out of DC, so they had a pretty good footprint. So Gorilla comes in, and they're like, yeah, I don't know if this Gino Morella opera singer guy, like even by the early 1960s, which I think is when this would have happened, even at this point, it's a little passé. It's a little bit not New York enough, if that makes sense.
Well, at this point in time, this is the Bruno era.
Not yet. It's about to be. To be. They're just breaking off from the NWA at this point. They want Buddy Rogers to be their guy. The rest of the NWA wants Lou Thesz to be their guy. They're like, yeah, that's not going to really work for us. Lou Thesz doesn't really, he's not big enough. He's a great wrestler, but he's not personality enough to be a guy in the Northeast. Like, he's not, it plays great in St. Louis. It plays great in Kansas City. It plays great in the South. It doesn't play great in New York and Boston and Philly and Washington, D.C. He's a little too vanilla. Yeah. So they want somebody with a little more pizzazz, and boy, is that the Nature Boy Buddy Rogers. Yeah. So Buddy Rogers is their number one heel. Bruno Sammartino is their number one baby face. And they're bringing in this Gino Morella guy he's from upstate New York. He comes there, and we need to do something with this guy. So Vincent J. McMahon, who has named so many he named Hulk Hogan, he named Big John Studd, he named all these guys. He's like, we're going to say this guy is from Manchuria, which is an area of Asia. I don't know if it's near, I believe it's near like Mongolia or somewhere around China. I don't know exactly where Manchuria is. And he drinks blood and he kills his opponents. And he's just this wild man, almost like a predecessor to Kamala. Like Kamala, like, is now known as a joke, but it was like, no, he kills and eats people. Like, he was coming over. He was a
cannibal,
African cannibal savage, and people bought it. So that's what they're doing with Gorilla Monsoon. He grows out this wild beard with these big sideburns, and he looks fearsome.
Yeah. I never heard Kamala talk until like 5 years ago when I watched the old Mean Gene backstage interviews. And
the
Kamala, and Kamala's like, I was getting a little nookie.
Have you ever heard Kamala sing?
Yeah, and that's where he goes, "Don't quit your day job" or something like that.
Well, he did something a little more than that. He had a song about Pat Patterson. It's a little politically incorrect.
Oh, okay.
So Gorilla Monsoon is born, and he has a pretty strong run there in the WWF. He was the understudy heel for Rogers. But around the time that Rogers loses the title to Bruno Sammartino, he's also having some health issues. He had some heart issues. He had to step away for a little bit. So the vacuum created by Rogers leaving is filled by Gorilla Monsoon, who's now the new #1 heel. And he has a big...
He did win some gold before he goes into a singles run.
Yeah.
He was a tag team champion, right?
I
thought he won I thought he was a tag, not maybe not WWF tag.
No,
team
he won a few WWF tag team titles.
Yeah. Him and Killer Kowalski were tag team champions, weren't they?
They did. Yeah. I believe if they weren't tag team champions, they got close to it. He had a great tag team with Cowboy Bill Watts at this time. Because Watts came in as like Bruno's buddy.
That's when the tag team had like tag team and then the United States tag team champions and stuff, right?
Yeah, well, a lot of places call their main tag team title the United States tag team title, because even though WWF broke apart from the NWA, and they never called Buddy Rogers or Bruno Sammartino until they pulled out from the NWA in 1983 when Vince McMahon, we know Vincent K. McMahon took over. They weren't part of the NWA. They were part of the NWA, but they weren't. Like, you would never hear Bruno Sammartino or Pedro Morales or Superstar Billy Graham or Bob Backlund even called the WWF or WWF World Champion. They never called them the World Champion. They just called them the WWF Champion.
Mm-hmm.
Because part of the rules of the NWA, if you were going to be a member, and Vince was always a member, even when he wasn't part of it, he had a vote on the champion. He was part of the 9-man board that oversaw the NWA. And part of that deal was you never called your champion the world champion. So Bruno Sammartino was always the WWF champion. He was never the WWF world champion. So for their tag titles, they called them the WWF United States tag team titles. Even though it's by design the same titles that went all the way up to like the Hardy Boys and Edge and Christian and the Dudleys and into splitting them up into 2 brands and all that stuff. It's the same lineage. And Monsoon did, I think he won them first with Watts because Watts was a babyface turned on Bruno, went heel. So Bruno Sammartino is an important guy to mention because they were very close friends. Bruno and no, they weren't good friends. Bruno and either Vince, like Bruno always kept the office at an arm's length. He was always very leery of the McMahons, never trusted them. Bruno was pretty smart.
Yeah, he was a smart guy.
He was a smart guy.
Yeah, a smart guy.
So, but Bruno did bond very quickly with Gorilla Monsoon because of their shared heritage. They were both Italian. Like Bruno's story is wild. Like his mother, like they were from northern Italy, and like during World War II, like they left their town and they hid up in the mountains in a cabin, and his mother would like sneak in the town and break in the houses that were occupied by the Nazis and steal food so her family could live. Like Bruno Sammartino and his mother is an incredible story.
Wow.
But they bonded over their Italian heritage. They bonded over, they both loved Italian food. They love Italian music. Like a lot of the Italian guys, Dominic DeNucci's another one. A lot of the Italian guys at that time, even Chief J Strongbow, who was really Joe Scarpa, like a lot of those Italian guys at that time stuck together and they were very good friends. And so they worked together. They did great business together. Eventually, and what really happens, the most important thing at Gorilla Monsoon's life that happens at this time is, and I don't remember her last name. She's an Irish woman. He meets a nice Irish lass.
Every Italian makes that mistake at least once.
They love the Colleens, as they say. They love the Colleens.
Yeah, it's the downfall of every Italian man. They meet an Irish woman and then they go insane. They go crazy.
Well, he didn't go insane, but he did meet the love of his life.
Yeah.
And I believe she worked at a bar that was either near where Madison Square Garden was at the time, or that was near the WWF offices that were in New York at the time. And I don't know her last name at the time. First name is Maureen Morella. We'll call her for the rest of the way. And they fall for each other hard. They fall for each other hard. And keep in mind, this is the 1960s. And I don't know the deal here. I don't know if there was a previous marriage where it ended or if the father passed or anything. But Maureen had 2 children going into this. And this isn't like the time where like this was step parents were a huge thing. And this did not deter, I'm going to just say Bob Morella, because this is more Bob Morella than Gorilla Monsoon, did not deter him at all. Like those children became as much of his life as she did. One of them is Joey Morella, who later becomes a referee for the WWF. So he winds up with falling for her. They become a couple, treats the 2 children she has like his own. But eventually things are happening and he has to wind up moving to California for a little bit. He's going to go to the WWA, which is the LaBelle brothers. The LaBelle brothers run that territory. Gene LaBelle and I forget the guy who actually, Mike LaBelle. Mike and Gene LaBelle are running that territory. And he's there for a little bit, doing very well. But especially now that he met this woman, he's, basically a father at this point to her 2 children. And he's like, because the point was they were just letting him go across, because back then you would hop from territory to territory to territory, especially if you were a heel. You would do your program you would get built up, do a program with the top babyface, and then you were gone. You were on to the next one. And you had a handful of homesteaders who would just kind of stay in the same territory forever. Monsoon always wanted to be a homesteader. He wanted to put down roots. The wrestling business he had an affinity for it. He definitely had an affinity for the camaraderie between the boys, but it was a job for him. Like he always said, like at one point, one thing I missed early on, he was a teacher for a little bit as well. And he always said, if I could have made the same money as a teacher that I made in the professional wrestling business, I just would have been a teacher. Mm-hmm. One of the famous lines of Gorilla Monsoon, and boy, is this not the case anymore. One of his famous lines is like, if you're in professional wrestling for anything other than money, you're a fool. That was one of his famous lines. So
there's money in this?
There was, not anymore. For a small handful there is, but not anymore. But back in the day, yes, there was. It was before it all got ruined. So like he's in LA for a little bit, but the thing was always, when the time is right, we're going to bring you back to New York and you're going to be in New York forever. And that's kind of what happened. And eventually, after a little while in LA, he's like, I want to go home. I want to plant my roots. He wanted to marry Maureen, which he did when they got home. So he moves. At first, he moved to Philadelphia. It was a little cheaper than New York and was kind of in the center of the territory, easy to drive anywhere. And he winds up finally settling in South Jersey, like kind of right over the bridge. He was always in that Philadelphia area. In fact, one of my favorite parts of the Irresistible Force book, because I didn't know this about Gorilla Monsoon, is they're talking about like how they wouldn't really talk about women and carousing and partying and stuff like that on primetime wrestling, like when they're just chatting with the producers. One of Gorilla Monsoon's favorite topics was his beloved Philadelphia Eagles. Became a big Birds fan. Did Mr. Monsoon. Yeah. But they were South Jersey. They were South Jersey, which is basically the Philly suburbs. That's where they plant roots. He comes back as a vilified heel, and he's a fixture in the WWF for the next couple of decades. But as he's still a big part of the wrestling side, he's also starting to work his way into the backstage side. Again, this is where Gorilla Monsoon's, or Bob Morello will say here.
Well, has he had his big match, his big showcase?
Oh, the Bruno match, that was the first run.
So here's what I didn't know. I didn't know this, that the Bruno match, the tagline is essentially then what he uses for the tagline for Andre Hogan. Yeah, I didn't know that. I always thought that was his tagline that was just popular because he said it on commentary. Yeah. But it was actually the tagline for Bruno versus Gorilla Monsoon, which I did not know that.
Yeah, no, he had that big run with Bruno was the first time around, and then he had some more runs with Bruno, and he had some runs with Pedro Morales. But yeah, that was the big one, was the first one.
Yeah, that's gonna be an awesome note to be like, you worked so hard and you come back and then you're headlining Madison Square Garden.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, no, he becomes a fixture, and he works for them for the rest of his life. Literally works for either Capital Wrestling or Titan Sports or World Wrestling Federation Entertainment Inc. for the rest of his life. So at this point, though, Gorilla is also developing that reputation for being a level head behind the scenes. He's a smart guy. He's a guy that is not that has the respect of, and this is rare, he has the respect of the office and he has the respect of the boys. And that is super, super, super rare.
He's like Danielson right now. Danielson's kind of that for AEW.
Yeah. So what winds up happening is a few years into his return, Toots Mondt is getting older. Toots Mondt is getting a little bit older, and it is time for him to back out and sell his shares. Like, I'm not sure. I think him and McMahon may have been 50-50 partners, but now he's getting out. So he sells a little bit to McMahon, so McMahon has a majority. Vincent J. McMahon, Vince Sr. and then he sells off to some other people within the business, or some people who were kind of guys that are trusted within the business. And the guys he sells to are Arnold Scotland, who was a wrestler managing Bob Backlund a little bit later. He sells some shares to Phil Zacco, who, if you ever watch the old All-Star Wrestling from the Hamburg Fieldhouse or Championship Wrestling from Allentown, especially when Joe McHugh was the announcer, you're talking about the promoter is Phil Zacco. Phil Zacco was the guy who actually was a partner. And do you know where Phil Zacco was from?
Shenandoah.
Close.
Really?
A little closer to me. A lot closer to me.
Palo Alto.
Even closer to me.
Pottsville.
Yes. Pottsville, Phil Zacco of Pottsville, Pennsylvania.
Wow.
Yep. He was one
of
the
the guy who was a journalist who used to always write and like expose the McMahons and stuff like that?
Phil Mushnick?
I think Phil Mushnick's from Monty City.
Is he? I didn't know that.
I think so. Somebody was saying there was a hold on, Phil.
I don't know where it is from. I know Brandy Mankiewicz, who was a writer for Pro Wrestling Illustrated, is from like somewhere in.
I could be wrong. I might be wrong.
Yeah, I have no idea. But yeah, Phil Zacco was definitely from Pottsville. So Phil Zacco and Arnold Scotland and Gorilla Monsoon all buy shares in Capital Wrestling Corporation, which is the overhead company of WWF. Like they always had like a kayfabe president. I forget the name of the guy who was the president forever. Willie something. Hang on. Willie Gilzenberg. Willie Gilzenberg was the president forever. And then when they started doing some stuff with Japan, it was one of the guys from New Japan, and then it was Jack Tunney. And we'll get into who the final WWF president was at the end of the whole thing here. But yeah, so because the McMahons until the late 90s always like to kind of keep hidden who was really in charge. Like Vincent J. McMahon especially really liked being the man behind the curtain. He wasn't like a public facing guy. He liked to be the guy in the back pulling the strings. He didn't like to be the guy in front. Willie Gilzenberg was the front man as far as who runs the WWF. And the promoter of record in Pennsylvania was Phil Zacco. And they always had their local promoters. It was Ray Fabiani in Philly. They had their guys other places too. In a lot of places in South Jersey, eventually it was Gorilla Monsoon or Bob Morella. So now Gorilla is, eventually as the 70s go on, he's still very popular. He turns babyface. But in the mid-70s, backstage guy than the in-ring guy. The in-ring is winding down and the backstage is ramping up. He has his own office, and essentially by the 70s, he is Vincent J. McMahon's right-hand guy. He's
Pritchard.
Yeah. Yeah, he is. Well, he's more. No, he's not Pritchard. He's Patterson.
Okay.
He's the guy. Like he is, until a certain someone rises up. A certain brat from North Carolina who's gone to military school rises up. Like if it's like, oh yeah, when Vince is done, Gino's running this thing. Like we'll probably all have shareholders, but Gino's the guy who's going to run the ship when Vince is gone. And that's when he becomes that's when we get the gorilla position. That's when he becomes the guy that is in charge of kind of the day-to-day. Like, yes, Vincent J. McMahon is overseeing it all, and he's the guy. He's the guy. But Gorilla is doing a lot of the work behind the guy. So that's kind of how things go up until Vince doesn't, like, there's a thing with the TV in Hamburg in the 70s, in the mid-70s, where their announcer in Hamburg and Allentown, their announcer wants union scale, union wages, and wrestling and unions don't mix. We know this. So Vincent J. McMahon is like, you're fired. I don't need you. Vinny, get in here. You're our new announcer. I think at this point, Vincent K. McMahon, Vince McMahon, we all know, at this point, I think he was already doing some stuff. They stuck him way up in like New England and like Cape Cod and like way up there, New Hampshire. That's where he was running like the ass end of the territory. But this is where he's kind of getting into the fold. And they say no matter how big he got, Gorilla Monsoon always either called him Vinny or Junior, which he hated. But Gorilla Monsoon always called him that. So that we kind of are in a holding pattern here until the big stuff happens, which is 1983. Vincent J. McMahon's in failing health, and Vincent K. McMahon, Vince McMahon that we know, is ready to make his move, and he wants to buy the territory. But he doesn't have a lot of money. He hasn't gotten his inheritance or anything yet. So he has this whole plan where he's going to make all these payments, and he's basically buying out his dad, who's just going to essentially give it to him. But he's got to buy out Gorilla, he's got to buy out Zacco, and he's got to buy out Arnold Skolin. Phil Zacco's getting old. He's like, yeah, I'm done. I'm out. Arnold Skolin is kind of like, okay, yeah, I see the writing on the wall. Like, there's nothing I can do about this. He's given the company to his kid, whether I like it or not, and they can fight us in court and win. Gorilla was a holdout. Gorilla was a bit of a holdout. So there's again, eventually would have been tied up in court and he would have been forced to sell anyway. And he kind of knew that, but he made a good deal for himself. Like they all got kind of nice deals. Like, no, they didn't make as much money as if they would have held equity in the WWE until now, where it was sold for billions. But they got hundreds of thousands of dollars at a time in 1983 when hundreds of thousands of dollars is like millions of dollars now.
Yeah.
And Gorilla Monsoon got the sweetest of deals because he was the holdout and he was the heir apparent. Like, he was the guy that would have taken over if Vince didn't want to buy the company. And so he winds up getting a guarantee that he would always have a place on TV. He winds up getting 1% of, 1.5% of the wage made by the opening match, essentially jobber, for every show that WWF runs for the next 10 years. So, I mean, even if that guy's making $150 a night, 1.5% of that, I'm not good at math, but that's close to $200. And if they're running 3 shows a night, 300 nights a year, that's a nice chunk of change.
Yeah.
So they say that Monsoon was kind of down for a little bit after that because he always had visions of, this is going to be my company. I'm going to run this someday. This is going to be mine. And it gets pulled out from under him because the owner's kid wants to take over.
Yep.
But and they said like even when he was at shows where like Vince was trusting him to run things, he's like, and they're like, Gino, what do you want us to do? What he wants to do is like, oh, what do I know? I just work here the same as you do. Like, I'm not in charge of anything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not an owner anymore. But eventually he kind of settles into his role. This is when he starts doing some announcing. He had done some announcing before. They always found a way to keep Gorilla involved. One of the big things we kind of skipped over in 1976, Vincent K. McMahon, one of his first big promotional endeavors, even while he wasn't still, he kind of took the helm on this. It was his thing, not his dad's thing. Was in 1976 when Muhammad Ali fought Antonio Inoki. And the guy that Vincent J. McMahon, the guy that Senior McMahon sent with Vinny to make sure that none of these boxing guys or the Japanese guys or anybody messed with his son was Gorilla Monsoon. Gorilla Monsoon was with him every step of the way. When they brought Muhammad Ali on WWF TV and he was doing an angle where he's beating everybody up, who was the guy that got the better of him? Gorilla Monsoon picked up Ali and airplane spun him and talked about how a good wrestler will always beat a good boxer, and just talked down on boxing. So Monsoon still had that respect because he was a level-headed guy, but if you crossed him, he would mess with you. And anytime Vince needed that heavy behind him, it was always Gorilla Monsoon until into the 80s when he started to get a little older. He got diagnosed with diabetes. That bad diet caught up with him. The love of sugary snacks caught up with him, and all the stuff, all the carbs. He would love to eat all the Italian food. But still, then he migrates. Like, he did a little bit of announcing. A lot of his early announcing was actually done on a channel that's near and dear to my heart, a channel called Prism. And Prism was like HBO or Cinemax back in the day. It was a TV channel you had to pay extra for. But it was local just to Philadelphia and like around Philadelphia. I don't know they had it up here. I'm not sure how long its reach was. But Prism, like HBO and Cinemax, it would show movies, but it would also show stuff from the Spectrum. One of the owners of Prism was Ed Snyder, who was the owner of the Flyers, and he owned the Spectrum. So they would show Flyers games, Phillies games, a lot of stuff from the Spectrum, and they would show the WWF wrestling from the Spectrum, and you need announcers. So the announcers for the Prism shows would wind up being Dick Graham, who worked for Prism, and Gorilla Monsoon. And that's where he got a lot of his early reps with announcing. And then when they wind up having to expand their television, and Vince is doing a lot more behind the scenes stuff, he's still announcing, but doesn't want to announce as much. Gorilla Monsoon actually becomes a play-by-play guy, which is weird for an ex-wrestler. Usually ex-wrestlers do color.
Yeah.
But he was so eloquent, he was so had that gift of gab, that he wound up becoming a play-by-play guy. And then something unfortunate happened. Two things that are unfortunate happens, but they wind up being very good for Gorilla Monsoon's announcing career. Obviously, when the full court press is on and they're invading the territories, the WWF invades AWA, and two of the people they sign a guy to be a wrestler. Jesse the Body Ventura is coming in to do a program with Hogan. He's flamboyant. He's over the top. He's the closest thing you can get to Superstar Graham without being Superstar Graham. But eventually he has some issues with blood clots, and he has to retire, and he becomes an announcer. And one of the sadder things that happens is, like, they always had, you know how they call Paul Heyman the wise man?
Mm-hmm.
You know where that comes from, right?
No, not fully, no.
So in the 70s and even in the early 80s, they always talked about the three wise men. Like back in the day, the baby faces would talk for themselves, but almost all the heels, to get instant heat on them, like immediately you have heat. Almost every heel of substance was paired with a manager.
Mm-hmm.
So they had their
classy Freddie Blassie.
Yep, he's one. There's three wise men. They had three managers they called the three wise men. It was classy Freddie Blassie. It was Captain Lou Albano.
I was gonna say Captain Lou and the fucking Grand Wizard?
The Grand Wizard of Wrestling, yes.
Yeah.
And he was a guy they thought they could build around because he was a younger guy. He wasn't as, like, Albano was a notorious drunkard. Albano would get so drunk, he would get in a fight with Vince and quit, and they would have to bring him back like a day later when he sobered up. He was always like hot, like they said Shane McMahon. Like they said Lou Albano almost beat up Shane McMahon when he was like a teenager. Because he would, anytime Albano would talk, and Albano would be drunk off his ass, and Shane McMahon would be like, "Shut up, fat boy!" And I don't care who your dad is, I'm gonna beat the shit out. And he just run over and try to beat up Shane McMahon. So Albano was a bit of a wild man. Blassie was a little bit on the older side, but the Grand Wizard was the guy who's going to be here for a long time.
I love classy Freddie Blassie's when he used to do the old school intros to the shows, and he would do like the monologue before the show.
Oh, those speeches, yeah. I think Dave Sahadi, the production guy, had a lot to do with those. He was amazing.
They're so good.
But Grand Wizard was the guy they thought they would have. And in the early 80s, I don't know when, maybe 82, 83, 84, he died. Like, well before Blassie and Albano, the Grand Wizard died. And it's like, well, damn. Now we have to find a manager to fill that void. Who do we get? And they're raiding the hell out of the NWA. They got Hogan. They got Gene Okerlund. They got Jesse Ventura. They got Adrian Adonis and Dick Murray. They got so many guys in the NWA. Hey, who's their champion? Bockwinkel? He's not coming. Who's his manager? Turns out it's this guy from the Chicago area. He says he's from Beverly Hills, California. Goes by the name of Bobby the Brain Heenan. And they bring him in, the best manager that ever lived. And I love Jim Cornette. I love Paul Heyman. There's only one, and it's Bobby the Brain Heenan. And eventually, as they're having some issues with announcers and Jesse, like Gorilla and Jesse was the original kind of team. Like your A team, which was I think Superstars, was Vince and Pat Patterson or Vince and Bruno eventually. But then your B team was Gorilla and Jesse. But then WrestleMania 2 happens, and Jesse gets in trouble because he was trying to unionize.
Yeah.
And that didn't work for someone, brother, and he ratted Jesse out.
Yeah.
So Jesse was kind of gone away for a little bit. It was like, okay, well, who do we stick with? Gino. Hey, let's put Heenan with him. Let's put Heenan with Monsoon.
So good.
And magic happens. It's the best duo in the history of wrestling broadcasting. Like, they just got each other, and it wasn't just on camera. Like, these are two guys who were, again, normal guys. They were family men who, like, everybody else is drinking and fighting and talking about what woman they're trying to get tonight. They're just talking about, baseball and sports. And
well, wasn't Bobby also another guy who came up through like a really rough promoter, and like his position wasn't something that is someone that this promoter would even thought of, and Bobby earned his stripes? Like,
I mean, Bobby always like played his part. Like, Bobby would, like, he was always a great manager. Like, talent shown through with Bobby.
yeah, but I mean, he had to really, like, he was someone that came in before 18. Like, he was so persistent. Like, he wore his way in. Like, you're going to fucking take me.
Right? Yeah, he broke in with Dick the Bruiser. Yeah, broke in with Dick the Bruiser. We're like he it's funny because Heenan's book, he talks about this. Like, he knew like wrestling was bullshit, but like they were all kayfabe. Like, they were like taking his ear and folding his ear down, his top of his ear down, and like slapping it so they would get cauliflower ear. And he's like, and they're putting him in with people. Like, back then, when they would put people in, they wouldn't smarten them up. They'd just have them get in the ring, and the guy would try to kill him, and they just saw what the kid would do. And eventually they're just riding, and Bruce's like, yeah, this is all bullshit. Don't tell anybody or we'll kill you. And he's like, Dick, I know. It's like, I've been in a fight before. I know this isn't what a fight looks like.
From Chicago.
Yeah, from Chicago. But no, they just from a personality standpoint, they clicked. And they became the best of friends. They became so close. And the stuff they did, especially, so this is when cable TV is becoming a thing, and WWF gets on USA Network, and they did TNT for a little bit, which is like a talk show with Vince McMahon and Lord Alfred Hayes, but it really congeals. And it didn't start like this for a while. You had Primetime Wrestling, and originally Primetime Wrestling was, I believe, Jesse Ventura and Jack Reynolds, who was like an announcer who didn't last very long. And when he was gone, it was Jesse Ventura and Gorilla Monsoon. And then when Jesse had to go do the Predator movies and he was doing all this Hollywood stuff, I put Bobby with him. And if it was not for Primetime Wrestling with Bobby Heenan and the Gorilla Monsoon, we would not be having this conversation today, because I would not be the wrestling fan I am without that damn show. There is still nothing in the history of professional wrestling that I cherish more than Primetime Wrestling from like 1988 to 1991. It is magical. And the wrestling on it is almost exclusively terrible. It has nothing to do with that.
It's Mystery Science
everything
Theater
to do with Monsoon and Heenan being yeah. Like, they're not talking over the matches, but the bits in between are so magical. They are the best thing I have ever experienced in professional wrestling, especially when they would, like, the episode I always think of, and it's part of it is because, like, my family, when I was a little kid, we got like a VCR that you could actually record off of, the VCR, not a VHS player, in like 1988, and Primetime Wrestling came on like Monday night from 9 to 11. I'm at this point 5 years old. I'm in kindergarten. They're not going to let me stay up till 11. We'll tape it. Like, I was like, no, I want to go to bed. We'll tape it for you. And they did. They would tape Primetime Wrestling for me, and I watched those tapes religiously. It would stop. I would rewind it. It would start it again. And the one that sticks with me so much is their Halloween episode from 1988, where it's mostly in the thing. And Gorilla Monsoon is in his normal, like, plaid jacket, his blue, like, circular glasses, but he's wearing a gorilla mask. And Bobby the Heenan is the big boss man, because he's the big heel at the time. And it's an awful big boss man costume. He's wearing like sunglasses and a hat and a cart, like a construction paper star that says Big Boss Man on it. And he has a stick. And eventually, like, he like does something, and they like, oh, I'm gonna get my makeup done, and they paint him up as a cat. But they show this interstitial where they're like, they'd always do these things where they travel. Oh, we're going to Busch Gardens. We're going on a boat. We're going to a casino, which there's a great story about that in the book. But one of the things they do is, like, we're going to this hot dog place in Ohio. And they go in, and gorillas get the hot dogs made. And, like, the whole thing's like, this place has spicy hot dogs. And he's like, I'm going to, like, load that one up with spice. And he goes back and he has like a normal looking hot dog on one side, which is his side, and like there's this one that has like chili and all this other stuff on it. And Bobby Heenan's like, I see what you did. Like, this thing's gonna kill me. Like, don't give me this hot dog. I want yours. Like, oh, you want to switch? You want to switch? So they switch around, and like Gorilla's eating the hot dog with all the stuff on it. Bobby's eating the normal looking one. And all of a sudden, Bobby Heenan acts like he's in an airlock and he can't breathe. There it is. Yes. There it is.
For the people listening audio, I just
with
popped up
the legendary Miss Elizabeth workout poster in the background.
The glasses over the gorilla mask is fucking amazing. What about this Halloween episode?
That was the next year. Yeah, that was the next year. Brother Love and the Genius.
But the fact that Bobby
Piper is Bobby Heenan.
Yeah. That he dressed up as the genius is fucking hilarious.
Well, because Hulk Hogan was here to Mr. Perfect, and that was his manager.
Yeah.
So Bobby Heenan just starts choking because he got the spicy hot dog. It was perfection. And at the end of the show, they're going back and forth all the time. Gorilla's wearing the mask and everything. And this was actually Heenan's book. So the ending shot, like the credits are about to roll and everything. The main event's over. In fact, I remember the main event of that. It was from Madison Square Garden. Demolition were the heel tag team champions. The main event of that show, because I watched it so many times, was Demolition against the Rockers in a really good match.
Yeah.
And the end of the show after that, they're doing their kind of closing off. Thank you for watching Primetime Wrestling. Good night, everybody. So there's this guy, the gorilla mask, big guy in a gorilla mask and the suit and the jacket and everything. So at the end of the show, Gorilla Monsoon walks in street clothes. Is like, all right, I'm ready to start the show. Bobby, what are you doing here? He's like, who have I been talking to for the last 2 hours? Like the whole gimmick is it's not Gorilla. Like it sounds like him. He's wearing like the whole thing was like he wasn't him the whole time. But did
you see what they just did on AEW?
The Phantom of the Opera thing with Shivani and Hangman.
Yeah. Real quick, here's a funny photo, and I'm not saying this to be disparaging because the guy hates me now, but tell me that this photo of Gorilla Monsoon couldn't pass for Eric Pinhead.
Yeah, especially when he was doing the more aggressive thing. Yeah, definitely when he was like fierce Pinhead. Absolutely.
Yeah. I was looking at photos, I was like, holy shit, that looks like Pinhead.
Yeah, like that, especially like the label of his hot sauce.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is the magical stuff. And for the rest of his career, primarily, Gorilla becomes more of mainly a commentator. He would do a lot of this backstage Gorilla position stuff when Vince was doing commentary. Like it was a flip. Like if Vince was on commentary, Gorilla's running backstage. If Gorilla's on commentary, Vince is running backstage. Which is why Gorilla commentated most of the early WrestleManias, because Vince wanted to run everything backstage and he didn't want to be stuck on commentary. Yeah. So then the commentary thing starts to wind down as Jim Ross gets more involved in commentary. He comes in and he's in and out for a little bit. Now's where it gets sad, and that sucks. So it all kind of goes to hell around 93, 94. In 93, Bobby Heenan takes an offer he can't refuse for more money. I think Vince wanted to actually have him take a pay cut.
Exactly what happened. But he was doing the whole. He pulled a Bret Hart to pretty much to Bobby, where he was like, "Here's your big money," and Bobby was like, "Man, I earned it. Finally, I'm here." And then Vince is like, "I can't pay you. I can't pay you what you want." And he literally did the exact thing to Bret Hart to Bobby Heenan. And
I mean, not to stick up for Vince McMahon, they're getting their ass kicked at this point. Not like again versus WCW, but the steroid trial. Like business is in the toilet.
Yeah.
In 1990,
I think from what I heard too, at this point, Gorilla knew he was done at the end of the year, but Bobby was leaving before Gorilla.
Well, Gorilla stuck around.
Yeah, but Gorilla knew his time was coming too, but Bobby was leaving first.
Yeah. So, Bobby takes the offer for WCW, and a lot of it he said was just his daughter's getting older. Again, they're both family men.
Yeah.
And one of the things we didn't talk about, like, there's a lot of guys, Mike Chioda, Tony Chimmel. Like a lot of these guys got into wrestling because they were friends with Gorilla's family. They grew up in the neighborhood. In fact, I think it was Chimmel. It might have been. No, I'm pretty sure it was Chimmel. Chimmel was actually a little bit of a jerk to Joey Morella, Gorilla's son. And Gorilla Monsoon pounds on. Like Joey comes back and tells his dad, "Yeah, this kid Anthony was being really mean to me or whatever." Goes over to the Chimmel household, knocks on the door. Tony Chimmel's father answers. He's like, I understand young Anthony was being unpleasant to my son, and I don't appreciate it, and I think it would be nice if he would correct his behavior a little bit, and they wound up becoming very good friends. And like Chimmel's like, he could have just beat the shit out of my dad as Gorilla Monsoon, but he came over as Bob Morella, very calm, very reasonable guy, and it wound up working out. And then because Gorilla would always like try to grab ring crew guys, so Chimmel and Mike Chioda wound up becoming part of the ring crew. Chimmel ends up becoming a long-time ring announcer, and Chioda becomes one of the longest-serving referees in the history of the WWF.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that kind of dovetails into what happens in 1994, which is budget cuts happen where, and Joey Morella, his son, was like a partier. He was in rehab a few times and things like that, but that has nothing to do with what happens here. And there were reports to prove this. They did a show somewhere in like Delaware or DC or something like that, but WWF had a rule with tours one time where, I guess to save money, the airport you flew out of or into has to be the airport you fly out of. Because I think Joey Morella might have been living in Florida at the time. So they had to drive from like DC or Baltimore, somewhere like that, all the way up to Newark Airport. And it's Joey Morella and Harvey Whippleman. And they're driving up to the airport, and they're exhausted because they've been on the road. This is the end of a tour. They're just beat. And unfortunately, I forget who was driving, but whomever was driving falls asleep at the wheel on the 4th of July. And there's a collision not very close to not very far from the exit to go to the Morella family home. And Joey Morella is killed in the car crash. Longtime referee, son of Gorilla Monsoon. And he was never the same. Never the same again. Ever, ever, ever. Like they just said, no matter, like, he was just like his heart was never in anything the way it was before that. Which, can you blame him? Can you blame him? He lost his son. So he does stick around for a little bit. In fact, in 1994, the original director of Primetime Wrestling, the original head of production before Kevin Dunn, Nelson Swegler, he does a show in Baltimore. They were hoping we'd become a larger thing, but it wasn't. It only lasted a month, called Bingo Break. And this is the one time he's on there as one of the hosts. I forget the other person, Karen. I forget her last name. She was an actress. But he is there as Bob Morella. He's not Gorilla Monsoon. And Sean Mooney, who was a longtime backstage guy and studio guy for WWF. He's the bingo host. Because it's basically, the whole idea is like, it's like a Regis and Kathy Lee or one of these daytime talk shows. But we're also going to play bingo. And you can go to your local store and pick up a bingo card and play and maybe win prizes. And it didn't get picked up or anything. It was only in Baltimore for like a month. But the April 1st, 1994, so this is a little before Joey passes, they have a guest for the April Fool's Day episode, and it's Bobby the Brain Heenan. And this is this little rinky-dink Baltimore local show, and you have Gorilla Monsoon, who is part of the WWF, and now WCW's Bobby Heenan, and they didn't skip a beat. And even after, that was the last time they were on TV together, but even after that, they made it a point to try to visit each other once a month. They talked on the phone all the time. Gorilla's health started to fail, and they say
real quick, the ending, essentially, for a lot of people, if you're not aware of this, Bobby the Brain Heenan's last appearance is the first Monday Night Raw.
No, it's not the first. It's toward the end of the year. No, it's
Raw. His last appearance is a Monday Night Raw.
It is, but it's nowhere near the first. It's okay. At the end of the first year. It's like probably the 50th.
Yeah. But essentially, they're like, all right, he's leaving. And at this point in time, he's not really commentary, and Gorilla's not commentary. He's the backstage. He's like the president of the company at the time.
Not yet. No, he's not the president yet.
Okay.
They're both kind of commentators, but not regularly.
Yeah. And essentially they're like, all right, well, this is his last night. What do we do? And he's like, throw me out of here. So like the joke of the entire time was, I'm going to have you thrown out of here.
Yep. And he finally did it.
Gorilla was the guy. And then him wearing the wig and trying to sneak back in.
Well, no. That was the first episode. That didn't happen on there.
Oh yeah. But like, and then also like he stole a bunch of stuff and had it in his bag. Like,
yeah. Like they threw the thing. Yeah. They threw his bag out.
And they said that they both left the arena that night. Like the segment where he gets thrown out of here.
Yep.
They both just leave. They don't. Yeah. They leave the show and they go back to the hotel room. And he said he opened up his thing and they shared a bundle of bananas and just hung out and talked and hung out for the night.
One of the, not to try to spoil too much from the Irresistible Force book, but they did try to make a point to hang out with each other at least once a month and everything. And there was one point in the 90s where like Heenan moved down he relocated to Florida, I think northern Florida, so he'd go to Atlanta when he had to for WCW. he didn't have to travel a whole lot. It wasn't as grueling as WWF. And his daughter, Bobby Heenan's daughter, Jessica, played softball. And they said there was a time when she was playing softball and Gorilla was down visiting Heenan. And they just sat in the stands at Heenan's daughter's softball game and just basically did their routine. Called it like they were back in prime time, like making fun of everything, and put on a show for the people in that. And what I wouldn't give to have been in that crowd, what I wouldn't have been to be in that crowd. And
it's like commentating a 50-50.
Yeah, well, no, yeah, pretty much. So Gorilla eventually does wind up kind of really recessing from his duties as announcer. He had some pretty serious health issues. He had a pretty bad heart attack. He had diabetes, and they say after Joey died, he just really didn't take care of himself. He started gambling a lot. That was the only time he really started drinking excessively. He didn't care what he ate, and it just exacerbated some things. And to kind of take the load off Gorilla, and because they already had enough announcers at this point, you have Vince, you have Jim Ross is back in the fold permanently at this point, and he's taking an elevated role behind the scenes. And Jack
Macho Man's doing some stuff.
Well, Macho's doing Macho.
Yeah, he was gone at that point.
Well, yeah, 94 Macho was in WCW by the end.
Yeah.
But they make the decision to make Gorilla Monsoon because Jack Tunney is legit being like Jack Tunney. He had a similar deal where when Frank Tunney, his uncle, who didn't have any kids, so it was all left to Jack, sold off Maple Leaf Wrestling. Jack Tunney got the deal where he would get a percentage of the gate from any show in Toronto, and also, you get to be the kayfabe president of the WWF, which he was from like the mid 80s until like 1995, 96. I think it was 95. So when they literally, he's gone from the company, they make Gorilla the president. He's the fan-friendly president, and he was more of like, usually Jack Tunney would show up and he would be like, the letter of the law says this, and it's usually something that benefits the heels. Gorilla's the fan-friendly president. No, you cheated. No, you're not. You don't win. Like he was a little more of like the Teddy Long babyface GM.
Yep.
And that lasts until the late 90s. He even did stuff like as late as like they would very rarely do like physical stuff with Monsoon. Like he had a few things with like Paul Orndorff and Ken Patera in the early 80s.
Get bit by a snake?
I don't think so.
I thought they did a bit where Gorilla got bit by the snake.
I don't think so. He got hit with a stool by the Brooklyn Brawler when they were setting up a feud with Brawler and Heenan and the Red Rooster. I don't remember him ever getting bit by a snake. But Vader attacked him when Vader was coming in. Try looking into that. I don't remember that at all. Warrior or Randy Savage, yes, but Gorilla Monsoon.
You're right. He got injured by Vader.
Yeah, Vader. I don't think they ever had Steve Austin attack him, but Steve Austin would get in his face when he was doing the initial Stone Cold stuff as a heel. You could always call him McGill Gorilla. But eventually, like, health concerns were really becoming a thing. His health was failing. And he was still, quote unquote, the president, but he said this was too much for me to take on. Like, Attitude Era is coming in at this point. It's like late 1997. I'm going to appoint a commissioner to handle the day-to-day operations, and that was Sergeant Slaughter. And then
and then Sergeant in the DX spots where they're
because Slaughter actually wrestled Triple H and everything.
Yeah.
And then in 1999, in late 1998, his health takes a very serious turn. And he just kind of disappears from TV. In fact, one of his last big TV appearances, I was actually there for.
Oh, yeah?
It was WrestleMania 15. And we didn't really talk about like we kind of talked about how Philadelphia was like his home base, even though he's in South Jersey. But he was very friendly with the media in Philadelphia. He had a column in the 80s for the Philadelphia Daily News, which is one of the big newspapers there, the big sports newspaper, always known for their sports section. He was good friends with guys from there in the Philadelphia Inquirer. So at that time, the First Union Center for WrestleMania 15, first time WrestleMania is in Philadelphia. He is actually there as one of the three judges for the ill-fated Brawl for All between Bart Gunn and Butterbean. He's one of the judges. It was him, Chuck Wepner, and I forget who the third guy was.
He's so tiny.
He had lost so much weight. He had some very significant heart attacks at this point, and was in and out of treatment, and just like it was getting really bad. And he did some things after that. He actually called some matches on like Shotgun Saturday Night or Metal or Jack, like not that long before he passed, because it is later on, around September, October, like his health is still failing, and he gets like checked out, and he's like, eventually, like, you know, you're gonna have to go on, Mr. Morello, you're gonna have to go on kidney dialysis, like your kidneys are failing. And he's like, so what does that mean? He's like, oh, well, you know, there's all these restrictions, you have to come in here 3 days a week, it's do all this painful stuff. He's like, what if I just want to die? Essentially is what he said. I don't know if it's exactly what he said. He was like, what if I don't want to do that? Well, you'll die. Like, oh, okay, I think I'm ready. And that's kind of where it comes to, where in late 1999, the fall of 1999, he's like, he talks with his family. He's like, I love all of you. Very religious man. Like, I hope to see all of you again someday. I want to be with Joey. That's literally, he literally says, I want to be, it's time for me to go be with Joey.
Him and Bobby went out so horribly too.
Yeah. And so he forgoes all treatment, doesn't want to do dialysis. They're keeping him. They said they had to like change his rooms in the hospital because they were trying to like keep him around. And eventually just got discharged. They sent him home. This was like kind of before hospice was a big thing. Yeah. But they sent him home. Like, okay, let him be with his family. And eventually does die very peacefully at home, surrounded by family. And they said during the service, Heenan was devastated. Like, literally at one point, Heenan throws himself on the casket. That's how devastated Bobby Heenan was. And this is at the peak of the Monday Night War. Heenan works for WCW, and he wants to do an opening tribute to him. And they're first like, no, we can't do that. He's a WWF guy. But eventually they do let Heenan like have a few words, and it's doubly sad because of Gorilla's link to the Hart family. This is the same show. It's in Kansas City, Missouri. It's the same arena where Owen Hart died. And one of the big things they're doing that night is Bret Hart is going to wrestle. And here's another sad story. Chris Benoit. Bret Hart and Chris Benoit are going to wrestle that night as a tribute to Owen Hart. But they do an aside. They cut to Heenan and Schiavone, and Heenan says a few words about how, you know, that pearly gate, those pearly gates where you go to see if you get into heaven, that's called the Gorilla position now. And they just let him say a few words about Gorilla Monsoon. And then the other thing is, at that point, the WWF Hall of Fame, they started that in 1993, like 93, 94, 95. They inducted some people in the WWF Hall of Fame, now the WWE Hall of Fame. And Gorilla went in. Gorilla went in 1994. He was part of the first full class. 93 was just Andre, and then they did a full class in 94 and 95. Gorilla went in 94. In 2004, when the first year they brought it back, Heenan went in. And he's not fully Bobby Heenan. Like, he's still got his wits about him, but the throat cancer was already starting to get in there, and he could still talk. Like, it wasn't like that similar thing that Roger Ebert had, where
no bottom jaw.
Yeah, he basically had no jaw and couldn't speak.
Yeah,
but he talked with a little bit of a speech impediment because of what they had to take out there. But you could still make out what he was saying and everything. And he's talking about how much he loved his time in WWF. He's talking about how fun prime time is. And they're like, why isn't he mentioning Monsoon? Like, he goes through this whole speech. He didn't do a long speech. He kept it short, but he's talking about all these things, but he's not talking about Monsoon. They were the best of friends. Why isn't he talking about Monsoon?
He waited.
He wanted to make sure his speech was entertaining. He wanted to be Bobby Heenan. He wanted to be the comedian. He wanted to be what everybody expected him to be. And he knew the second he mentioned Gorilla Monsoon, Bobby Heenan is gone and Ray Heenan is there. Like, he could not hold it together. So at the very end, he starts choking up, and he's like, the only thing that could have made this better is I wish Monsoon was here.
Yeah. I'm getting like emotional hearing that again. Yeah.
No, and again, not to keep going back to the book, like that, the last 2 chapters of that book was like very, very hard to.
It's like there's not a lot of people in wrestling who, like, you can come into wrestling with a best friend, you can make a wrestling best friend, but like sometimes the business wins, and you don't.
Most of the time,
and most times best friends are mortal enemies, or they just grow apart. And the fact that Bobby and Gorilla like always kept that friendship is a miracle, and it's beautiful.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah. And that's the real legacy, is his family, his children, his grandchildren, his now great grandchildren. That's his legacy, and not going to be another one like him, right?
Yeah, no, definitely not. And just because this is close to our Thanksgiving episode, leave a comment below of what wrestler you're most thankful for. Why is Gorilla that answer if it is for you? I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Anything you want to plug or anything before we get out of here, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, I'll plug the usual PPW Wrestling, PPW Frostbite coming up in a little less than a month now. It's going to be Saturday, December 13th at the Slatington Expo Center / Slatington Social. They have some pickleball and VR stuff going on there now. Going to be a real fun show. Our last show of 2025. Moving on to 2026. It's been a fun year, and can't wait to see everybody one last time in this year.
Yeah, 2025. I feel like it flew by.
It did.
I can't. I think this is the fastest year of my life.
Well, it does speed up as you get older. They always say
Holy
that, but it's been a breakneck
quick.
pace.
Yeah, it went really, really quick.
Like it literally, like we're about a week from now, almost exactly. Well, I know this is tape delayed a little bit, so by the time we hear this, by the time this is going out to the general public, if you will, it's over a year since our buddy Rembrandt won that PPW heavyweight title. That's amazing. Yeah. That feels like yesterday.
I'm not sure if this is airing on the 14th or if this is airing on the 21st.
Whatever.
But fun fact is that November 18th is the birthday of the Tornado Tag podcast.
Oh, how about that?
And I think it's like 8 or 9 years old this year.
Yeah, it's
about
to go
crazy.
You're about to have an angsty teenager on your hand.
Holy shit. We're about to hit double digits doing this shit, VP.
Not me. I came on a little bit later, but yeah, close.
I mean, you were part of the first year though, still, weren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was like August of the next year. It was like August of 2019. I came in.
All right. From the architect of big matches in the territory area to the resonating voice guiding millions of household viewers, Gorilla Monsoon's imprint on pro wrestling is undeniable. His journey, athletic monster heel, face turned star, commentator, corporate presence reflect the evolution of sports itself. So next time you hear, "Will you stop?" or hear backstage directions given, remember the man who set the standard, Gorilla Monsoon. Thanks for listening, everybody. Tuning in to the ABJ podcast, Tornado Tag. We'll see you guys soon. Sometimes these do pop up live. I'm not saying I'm going to always promote them. So always keep your bell notifications turned on. If you're on Facebook, YouTube, or whatever it may be, we may pop in and talk some wrestling or modern day stuff, but we have some more episodes coming up for you guys. We do these history things, belt histories, whatever it may be, maybe some old school match watch alongs. But make sure you guys are always tuned in. Go grab some merchandise. Our Teespring is available. Grab some t-shirts. We are looking to so if you see in the camera here, this is the old school podcast table, and I am looking to bring that back, but I have to we'll probably do it again like the old school way, because I've been trying that 3-camera setup and it's not really working out the way I want it to, and the editing's tough. So I think we're gonna go back to the old school setup, shooting down the table with the webcam, and come back to StreamYard again. I like it. I like that lifestyle, and I just need a little bit of an audio interface to do it, because I don't want to unplug a whole bunch of stuff and move it around. So I want like its own stable setup, but it's coming soon. So merchandise and subscriptions and memberships on the YouTube channel help out so much. We'll see you guys next time. Make sure you support PPW Wrestling, High Tension Wrestling Network, and all of our friends in the wrestling business. Jump down to Pilgrim, grab some great beers, and we'll see you guys next time. We're out of here.
Go home.
By the way, hang out. I want to ask you something after this. Bye.